During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10, so I told her it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO.
Welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO podcast. Today I'm here with Dr. Kathy Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to interview you.
Sure.
So the first question I want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do here at Glenmeadow?
Sure. Glenmeadow is a senior living community. We have independent living, assisted living, and home care.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to how you got to where you are today?
Sure, that's a long story. I spent the first 25 years of my career in higher education. I started as a teacher and moved into various roles in the administration, most recently as chief of staff to the president at Springfield College. I was also involved in Glenmeadow as a board member, so I volunteered for Glenmeadow to serve on the board of directors, and a crossroads in my own professional journey and the vacancy in the presidency at Glenmeadow coincided. And I took the advice of some people in my circle who said, you really should apply for that. And it was a stretch for me because I had always seen my career continuing in higher education, but there were so many wonderful things about the opportunity at Glenmeadow that I needed to give it really serious thought. And I'm so glad I did, because it's been the best decision I made.
How were you able to take that leap of faith in the people in your circle to believe in you that you're ready to take this position?
That's a great question. When you have people in your circle who you trust and who know you really well, you tend to take their advice. And I had a couple of my mentors say, you really need to look at it seriously. And for me, that meant diving into the position description and looking at my resume to see where there were some transferable skills and what could I take from my experiences in higher education and apply to a senior living community. And I found that there was more overlap than I might have originally thought. And running Glenmeadow is like running a small college in a way. And so it was through that process of really discernment on my part, and with a lot of conversations with some of my mentors, say, yeah, this might be a really good fit.
Did you ever think or even see yourself becoming a CEO, or was it more of you thought you're just going to work in this higher education system?
At one point, I wanted to be the president of a college. So that was my dream for a lot of years. And I never imagined until a year and a half ago that I might be the president of a senior living community. But keeping an open mind to what possibilities might exist, I think, was really what made the difference for me, of being able to look at my professional journey in a bit of a different way. And I've had a lot of moments in my career that I never would have imagined, but somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you should go do this. And those have been really great experiences. So I let that happen one more time.
You talked about that there's some similarities and differences. So what were the similarities that overlapped?
So a nonprofit is a nonprofit. There are budgets. There are facilities. There's, in higher education, we talk about admissions. Here we have a sales function. Marketing is marketing. Fundraising is fundraising. I don't work with students every day. I work with older adults. At one point, I would have parents calling me to advocate for their children in a college. Now I have children calling me to advocate for their parents. But there's a lot of similarities, and running a complex organization is similar, whether it's in higher education, in a for-profit industry, or in senior living.
What is it like going from having parents calling you for their kids to having their kids call you for their parents?
Ultimately, they all want the same thing. They want what's best for their loved one. And in most cases, they want to remove an obstacle or get an answer to a question that maybe they're not getting the straight answer from their parent or their child. So it's really just about listening. It's about being a problem solver, and it's about connecting them with the resources that are best positioned to help them.
What are some leadership skills that you would give to me as I'm on my journey to becoming a better leader?
Yeah, it's a great question. Early in my career, I never would have thought of myself as a leader. But one of the most important lessons anyone ever taught me was, you are a leader no matter what your title is, no matter what your position in an organization is. So right where you are right now, you are a leader, you're a thought leader, and you're the CEO of your own life. right now. But some of the leadership skills that have benefited me the most over the years, first of all, is listening. Most of the time, people just want to be heard. So listening with a problem-solving mentality, I think, is really important. But also, one of the most important skills for me is being a connector. So as the CEO, you know a lot about what's happening in the entire organization, but that may not be true for everyone else in the organization. So I consider myself sometimes a knitter, where I'm taking information from various parts of the organization and making it into something that we can all absorb, respond to, react to.
As a CEO, and you said you understand every part of the organization, how are you able to break down all the information that you learn to make sure that everybody, a part of your team, understands as well?
There's a lot of information coming at me, and I rely on the team I have around me, the great team I have around me, to filter out what I really need to know and what I don't need to know. And my ability to do that really comes from the trust that I have in all of them, that they're doing what they need to do for the best of the organization. I don't want to get in their sandbox too much. They are the experts in their particular areas, whether it's sales and marketing or philanthropy or facilities or finance. They will keep me informed with what I need to know. But your ability to manage a lot of information is definitely an asset. But I also don't hold myself to standards that are too high. I know I'm not going to remember everything, and people are very gracious around me when I say, tell me again why we're doing that, or help me understand what this sequence was. So being vulnerable enough to say, yeah, I don't remember what we just talked about, and that's okay. And for me in particular, all of this is new. I didn't come into Glenmeadow with any background in senior living, so I'm relying on the people around me to teach me the industry on a daily basis.
How are you able to organize all the information that you have being brought to you every single day?
I'm a pretty organized person, and people have always told me that I have a high capacity for work. So for me, I make a lot of lists. I take a lot of notes. I might do a voice thread in my phone as I'm driving home to remind myself of something that I needed to follow up on the next day. I always try and make sure that I know when I leave the office, what are the 3 most important things I need to do the next day. But I don't keep track of everything. I have a great assistant who helps me make sure that I'm on top of everything, because it's a team effort to be a CEO, and having a great team around you is one of the most important decisions that you can make as a leader, is hiring good people.
How are you able to find a good team that works well with you and each other?
That's an ongoing process. Teamwork is not a destination that you reach. It's something that you shape every day, and it's shaped by the circumstances that you find yourself in. The first step in finding really good people is understanding the organization and what it needs, having a good job description, making sure that you're connected in the community so that when you have a job open, I can say to someone, hey, just so you know, I've got this job open. If you know of anybody who would be a great match for it, please let me know. But it's also being able to interview somebody effectively so you can get from them all of the information you need to evaluate whether or not they're going to be a great fit for that particular job. But I think what's as important as hiring the right person is making sure that you're onboarding them as effectively as you can. Anybody who starts a new job always feels like they're getting thrown into the deep end of the pool and they're not sure if they can swim. So the process just really is starting once you've named that successful candidate, and it continues into their first year as they're getting up to speed with the organization and their new role as well.
So eventually I want to create my own nonprofit. What is some things that you've learned running a nonprofit?
First thing I will share, and it's a message that I got during my time in higher education from another college president, is that nonprofit is a tax status, not a business model. So the conventional wisdom that nonprofits shouldn't make any money doesn't make sense, because we all need to bring in revenue to do what we do. So that's the first thing that I would encourage you to go in with, is the mindset. It's not to run on a shoestring budget necessarily or try not to make any money. It's to manage the budget that you have as effectively as you can, while intending to be in the black more than you are in the red for the benefit of your organization. But a nonprofit is a mission focused, mission-centered organization, and being clear about what your mission is and how you can best meet that mission and what support you need to meet that mission is really important. Nonprofits can't survive without philanthropy, without donors, without people who are willing to support that mission. Being able to articulate that and to really sell the mission of the organization and why an organization or an individual should support you is really a key to your success.
What are some ways that you're able to go to donors with business proposals? Because that's something I'm working on right now, is trying to create business proposals that make sense to the businesses that I'm talking to.
Well, what we find really successful here is storytelling. At the end of the day, the work we do here is about making the lives of older adults as rich and vibrant as they can be. People don't necessarily want to hear why that's important to me. They want to hear why that's important to our residents, why it's important to the families of our residents. So it's about how can you convey in a compelling way why the work that you're doing is so important. It's one thing for me to say, okay, it's really important that we're focused on wellness, that we have this renovation underway. The total cost is about $11 million. Would you donate $1 million or $2 million? And have them go, why? You're just asking me for $1 million. What's in it for me? And it's the opportunity to really connect a person's passion with the mission of the organization. That's the key thing to find. And it only comes through conversations, and it's a process to build a relationship with a donor. So it may take 6, 7 meetings before you're really able to make that ask, because you want them to fully understand what it is you're asking for.
You talked about being in the community and getting out in the community to not only build a relationship, but also, like you said, to find team members. So what are some ways that you go into the community to build relationships?
We go to a lot of events. Western Mass is brimming with great community events. So my wife and I like to be visible at all kinds of events. We serve on boards. We try to support the community in every way that we can. And it's about just being present and supporting other organizations in the same way that you would love for them to support yours.
So I want to go a little bit back on team building.
Okay.
When you're going through the process of building a team, what are some important characteristics that you're looking for in your team members?
First, there has to be some level of competence. Can they do the job? And once that has been taken care of, confirmed, then it's how do they approach the work? Are they someone who works well with others, who can collaborate to problem solve, to set a strategy, to execute a plan? Or are they someone who is more of an independent operator, somebody who just likes to be in charge of their little world and not interact too much with other people? I also like to see how a prospective team member interacts with our residents and with other staff, because that's the key part of the job. If you're not really a people person and maybe you're not all that comfortable around older adults, this is not the place for you to work. But I also want our team members, particularly those who are on the senior leadership team, to be really energized by the work, that this isn't just a job, it's a calling in a lot of ways. And it's a 24/7 operation. There are some long days, there are unpredictable circumstances, but this has to be the kind of job that somebody is excited to come to every day.
So you talked about how there's some people that they like to work alone, and there's others that are like great in teams. So how are you able to balance and find ways that make both of those styles work?
I think it depends on the function. So if you have someone who maybe isn't in direct contact with our residents as much, that may be someplace that an introvert or someone who's a little bit more of an independent operator can still thrive and have a positive impact on the organization. Some other fields, like our life enrichment staff, they really need to be people, if that makes sense. We have to be comfortable in front of a group, and you want to engage and energize and motivate our residents. But part of that process is also helping the entire team to understand that it's a developmental process. And there are going to be days that we come to work and we don't feel like being out in front, but you got to turn it on, because the residents will expect to see that level of energy and level of engagement. But one of the things that we focus on a lot is professional development and creating in all of us that self-awareness of what are our strengths. How do we bring those strengths to the work environment? How can we help each other to cultivate and nurture those strengths because that's what's best for the organization.
How are you able to have a positive environment, not only with your staff, but also the people living here? Because when I walked in, I was like, wow, this is really nice, and I've never been here. So, like, how are you able to have that environment?
I have nothing to do with it on some level. This is the culture of Glenmeadow, and we really draw on the energy of our residents. They just make this such a joyful place to work. And it does, I say it has nothing to do with me. It's the tone that I think a leader sets in an organization. And I've always believed that there is a space for fun. There's a space for frivolity at work. And we do serious work and it's important work, but we can still have some fun.
How are you able to have fun while keeping it serious and professional as well?
Yeah, it's little things like how you interact with a resident. And we had a party a year or so ago during October for breast cancer awareness. We called it the Pink Party. And I volunteered to have whipped cream thrown in my face. So it's in some ways disarming yourself and being able to laugh at yourself that gives everybody else some permission to do that too. Best advice is don't take yourself too seriously. And I have tried to embrace that over the years. Some days it's harder than others, but life's too short.
I agree with that. In my book, I Am a CEO, Realistic CEO, Tony, he talks about the LBW, the long, lonely, boring work. So can you tell us about the long, lonely, boring work that you have to do?
Yeah, it's the behind the scenes, digging into the budget, the maneuvering that nobody sees about how it is that we're able to make this operation run. Some of it is the cultivation or the excavation of why we've always done things the way that we've done it. And it's that process of change. Sometimes that can be the long, boring work, but that the residents may not see, but it ultimately helps us to be a more effective organization. But I really don't find a lot of it boring, not yet anyways, because it's still also new to me. But so far, it's all been rather exciting for me.
So you talked about how the behind the scenes work might not be like your favorite part, but then when you see the residents and how like they feel after that, it's like a great benefit of all the hard work to see what the outcome of it of helping the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They are a wonderful group of people. And one of my colleagues says that working at Glenmeadow is like working with 150 grandparents every day. And it's true. They're always glad to see you. They want to make sure you're eating enough. And they really care about you and they care about this place and they care about their friends. And it's so much easier to work in that kind of environment where we're all in it for the best reasons.
What are some things you've learned so far being the CEO working here actually?
I have learned so much. Even serving on the board for a couple of years, I didn't get the best sense of what the day-to-day operations are like. And this is an incredibly complex organization with more moving parts than you might imagine. But it's also an organization that has such a rich history, but still a lot of people don't know about. So one of the charges that I had from the board of directors was to work on Glenmeadow's visibility. And we've tried to do that to get some more name recognition in the community. And that was one thing that surprised me because we've been around for 140 years and there are still a lot of people, even many who live in Longmeadow, don't know that we're here. So for us to be a viable option for older adults, they need to know we're here. So that was one of the things that was surprising to me, but that I've really enjoyed the opportunity to talk more publicly about all the things that are so wonderful about Glenmeadow.
So what are some ways that you're able to get this amazing organization out to more people?
It starts with digital marketing in a lot of ways. Social media has been a great asset for us. We've done some commercials on local TV, a billboard, but it's also conversations like this that create an opportunity for a wider portion of the community to get to know a little bit more about Glenmeadow.
I just got a couple more questions for you.
Absolutely.
So when you first came here and you said you didn't really understand that how nobody really knew about this business, even though it's been around for 140 years, what was it like going from the board to becoming the CEO?
It was a big shift. And the shift was not only for me as an individual, but it was for the organization as well. There was certainly some questions, some concerns. She doesn't come from senior living. Is she really going to understand us? But the the process, and I'm a learner. I enjoy new challenges. I enjoy new adventures. I enjoy learning new things. And that's how I have approached this position, that this is an opportunity for me to learn something new. I'm very comfortable asking questions. I am very comfortable saying that I don't know this. Can you help me understand it? And I think that goes a long way to building credibility with the people that you work with. So you don't assume that you have all the answers. And this is a really good example of me definitely not having all of the answers.
So I like how you're able to, you're always talking about how, not always, but you're talking about how when you don't know something, you're asking the questions. And as the leader, how does that make your employees and the people work with you feel to be able to know that the leader is still learning and asking questions?
I hope it makes them feel comfortable asking those questions themselves, and to not have such high expectations that they know everything and have all of the answers, even for the area that they oversee. But it's also a great way to learn about what's happening in other parts of the organization too. And that's another part of team building, is really understanding what the experiences are of the colleagues that you work with every day. So I would love for the team to feel like they can ask questions without fear of criticism for asking that question.
What is the biggest piece of advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self?
To my 18-year-old self?
Yeah.
Stay open-minded. I think that, as I said, the experiences that I've had that have been most meaningful for me, I didn't know were going to be that way. I love the quotation from Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. And that's something that I would encourage my younger self to keep in mind as well.
So how were you able to develop more of an open mind?
There's a great quote, leap and the net will appear. And it's about trusting that whatever is meant for you won't pass you. And I may not have always known where the destination was or what was going to lead me there, but I trusted that I was building the skills and the habits along the way that no matter where I was going to be okay. So I would say developing that confidence in your ability and knowing that wherever it is, it's going to be fine, I think really helped me.
What's one fun fact about yourself that nobody really knows?
One fun fact. I have 3 tattoos.
3? Wow.
Okay. That sometimes surprises people because I seem a little buttoned up and full.
So based on your previous careers and everything that you learned in your previous careers, how were you able to take that information and use it to being a CEO?
One of the most important things about my career in higher education is that I was a generalist. So I knew a little about a lot. And that ultimately, I think, has been a great advantage to me in this role as well, because I'm comfortable with that breadth of information. And that is something that also helps me to absorb a lot of information too. So coming through my graduate school process, and you're always taught to specialize. And my experience was the exact opposite. It was more advantageous for me to be a generalist and to know a little about everything, because that was what helped me be more effective in the roles that I had. And it's certainly playing out that way here as well.
So going from everybody telling you that you want to be able to specialize in one thing to realizing that you personally, your careers, you haven't had to quote unquote be a specialist, but you got to learn a little bit of everything like you said. How did that make you feel to go from people telling you that you want to specialize in one thing to realize that for you, specialize in one thing isn't going to be productive to you?
It was a relief, actually, because I love to have variety in my day-to-day. I love to learn about a lot of different things. And when I had started to specialize in one area, I found, I want to go learn about these things too. And once you embrace being a generalist as really a strategic approach and a strength, then I found it to be a relief. I'm like, okay, now I can just go and learn about everything that I want to. And it finds a way to bring itself back to your day-to-day. But it also helps in those conversations that you have with donors or with a bank when you're trying to get funding. And if you can talk about a wide variety of topics and demonstrate your confidence in a wide variety of topics, they're going to have a lot more confidence in giving you resources.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about when you're talking to the banks and the businesses, like you said, being able to show them more instead of being like, this is one thing, you're able to show them a lot of benefits. How are those conversations different than when you're just trying to show them one thing?
I think it depends on what you're asking. So if we obviously went out for financing for the renovation, and yes, that was about the building plan and it was about the drawings and about the square footage, but it was also about what is the experience going to be like for the residents and how does this renovation fit into your larger business model. So it's understanding that in some cases, the specialization is a component of the larger picture. So it's a piece of the puzzle, if you will, but it really does help to be able to articulate what that whole picture looks like.
I'm really just trying to understand this because this has definitely been something that I've been working on. So when you're able to ask what you want, but also articulate it and make sure that they understand the good use of what they're doing, then they're more likely to.
Think of it like a coach. As a coach, you started playing one position. But in order to effectively coach, you need to know about all of those positions. It's similar as a generalist in a leadership role that you may specialize in finance or in programming or in fundraising, but you need to know about all of those other areas as well. So it's how do you take all of those experiences that you have and put it into a package that helps you to effectively articulate that business plan for a potential funder.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So how did you learn these negotiation skills that you had to be able to ask these donors for the money and the support?
You just ask. The first ask is always the hardest. And after that, it becomes a little bit easier when you gain the confidence of asking, but you've also done all of your homework before then to really understand the individual or the organization that you're pitching. What has their relationship with your organization been? How can you connect them to your mission? What's the right amount to ask for? And that's, again, where your team can really be helpful in putting together that story for you to understand who it is that you're sitting across a table from.
So thank you. I appreciate you for coming on today. I've actually learned a lot, so thank you for that.
Great. I had a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the support that you guys have shown. Thank you for watching this episode of the Realistic CEO Podcast. See you in the next one.